First thing to do when you're constructing a building from scratch is making your mind up on how large does the inside space have to be. In this case I wanted to place the toilet bowl, a trough and a wash basin in this building. How much space would I need for the bowl and some large boards to separate it from the rest? Best way to go is to go to your own bathroom and measure it. The trough should be wide enough for 2 men to do their business at the same time. And there should be enough space to walk between the corner of the boards and the wash basin. It doesn't have to be right down to scale as long as you're not putting any figures inside the building. Next thing to do is to lay down the height of the inner walls. Since figures in the 35th scale are 50 or 52 millimeters tall, the walls must be higher. Somewhere between 65 and 70 millimeters should do. The same goes for the door. This piece of styrofoam came in handy because it had exactly the measures I needed. The right front corner was meant to be destroyed by a collateral hit of a bomb. Here's some dry fitting with the toilet. A small window for light and ventilation was needed. Styrofoam can easily be glued with white glue, but if you want the joints to be stable, it's better to insert 2 or 3 pieces of cocktail sticks like nails. You want to make sure for a proper alignment when you do that, or the angles will be messed up. And again, some dry fitting. For the outside of the walls I used photo paper and cardboard. The photo paper was scored to represent bricks. The cardboard is the plaster and got some cutouts for damages and cracks. I transferred the walls measures onto the paper and cardboard. Because of the corner, the dimensions of the walls are somewhat extended. That means I had to add about 1 millimeter to either side. After cutting and folding the paper and cardboard, I dry fitted both to sketch in the openings for door and window from the inside. This needed a little fine tuning, but not too much because the edges of door and window were to be covered up with more cardboard. For the inside I used the same materials. In this case the cardboard was cut to represent the tiling. I cut out a few tiles to represent damage. I wanted to build a trough or Pissrinne as we say in German. I had to remove some of the styrofoam floor to build this. A piece of a plastic straw was used. First I cut out a small rectangular piece and glued a matching piece of aluminum foil into the hole. I punched some lines of small holes into the foil, and that's the trough's drain. Then I glued the straw into the cutout. After it had cured, I cut off the upper half of it with a hobby knife along the edge of the cardboard. To complete the trough, I glued 2 strips of 1 mm plastic sheet to both edges. For the lower portion of the building I used profile plastic sheet. I wanted to represent the typical architecture style of the early 20th century. I filed the edges to 45 degrees for a proper fit. After the plastic cement had cured, I cleaned up the edges and filled the tiny gaps with super glue. I don't know anything about carpentry, so I only had a rough idea of what this should look like. I want to thank my friends at YouTube Modelers who advised me and supported me on this part of the build. I started with a sketch on paper and just laid down the matchsticks onto the sketch to measure them. The truss is somewhat guesswork, but it looks realistic enough since more than half of it will be broken anyway. The huge beam comes from a New Year's rocket. I added boards to the roof's edges. What would I do without McDonald's coffee stirrers? And then I put a ledge on top of the stone structure to make it complete. This was made from strips of 1 mm plastic sheet. For the frames I used mainly cardboard. I did them as 1 piece each around the whole opening. This meant exact measuring and careful bending, especially for the upper horizontal frame of the window. The same ledge was put on top of the wall tiling, but it was scored to match the tile's joints. The windowsill was made from 1 mm plastic sheet too. The two round pieces of plastic sheet on the tiles represent the toilet flushing. The damaged plaster looks weird, and that's because I cut from the wrong side of my sketching. I could have done it again, but I left it because nobody's perfect. Here are some impressions of the finished sections prior to painting. And some dry fitting with the interior. Those parts of the wall's edges that were destroyed by the bomb were covered with modeling clay. I put on the first base colors, and you can see the large board section of the toilet cabin.